Ambient sound design. This is one that I'm really, really passionate about. I really love doing sound design for just spaces in games and telling the stories of worlds. Before we get going, a couple quick caveats. Number one, I recently bought there it is, beautiful new case for my Euro rack, and there's a lot of beautiful flashing lights that my camera is getting a bit obsessed with. So every now and then it may unfocus me and focus on that. I can't blame it. It looks beautiful. I could turn it off, but look how pretty it is. Oh, it's so beautiful. I love it so much. Secondly, just where we are in time, England just won the semi-finals of the Euro 2024 football match, and where I live in Nottingham, everyone is very excited about that. There's a lot of beeping cars and screaming outside, so if you hear any wah, then that's what that is. So it's all good. It's happy people. Just we'll have to let them get on with it. So that stuff aside, ambient sound design. It's a really, really fantastic area of sound design for games generally. There's so much that you can do and so much opportunity for storytelling, textural layering, just so much cool stuff. So it's something I really want to talk about and something I feel strongly about and I've really enjoyed doing through my career. I'm not going to do a big CV statement of all the things I've done, but I've been a sound designer and composer for I don't know, 22 years, something like that, maybe 23, I don't know. And I've done ambient sound design for many, many games, including the Crisis 1, 2 and 3, Star Citizen, Aliens vs Predator, Star Wars Battlefront 3, whatever, didn't come out, and Homefront, Team Sonic Racing, and most recently the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that I've really, really, really dug into that and had a huge amount of like textural detail in that game. And I think that game, more than anything else, has made me really think about how intricate and detailed and interesting ambient sound design can be. So in terms of who this is for today, this is really for anybody interested in games development. Any sound designers, maybe if you're still learning or if you're about to like start contributing to the ambient sound design of some new game, then this could be for you. I'm going to keep it fairly high level. I'm not going to get into the weeds of like specific see, I told you, it really loves my Eurorack. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the weeds of like very, very specific details of the sound design. It's conceptual, high level stuff, but I think I've got some interesting points to make. So I will just give you a little high level rundown, and then we can break each of those down in a little bit more detail. And I think it'll be helpful and hopefully interesting. Oh my God! Stop looking at my Eurorack. So two really high level goals should be: everywhere you stand in a game should tell a story, and a second high level goal should be that every second that you stand somewhere should tell a story. So we'll come back to that. Some more secondary goals: you should have a narrative for every room and every space. Everywhere should tell a story, so we'll talk about that. Exploring, establishing and demonstrating contrast is absolutely essential to ambient sound design, so I'll talk about that. That's something I feel pretty passionate about. Hero sounds and carpet bombing, which is two different types of like spotting sounds that you need to do for ambient stuff, and I'll cover that and how they work together. Those two are like two sides of the same coin, really. Supporting the art and design departments, but also representing audio, making sure that the needs and desires and creative decisions of the audio team are not lost amongst all the requirements of other disciplines, because audio is just as important as any other discipline. So something to remember and discuss there. Creating and triggering memories. I'll talk about that. It's an interesting little idea. And then I got three that are pretty much like a little level deeper into actual sound design. We've got transparency, asymmetry, texture. So I'll cover those. And then finally, the importance of being there from day one and being along for the ride of all levels and the game development being created. And I think that's it. So it's a few different ideas to cover, but I think we've got some cool stuff we can talk about today. So let's get cracking. Let's talk about the two, I guess I consider them the most high level goals of ambient sound design. You've got everywhere you stand should tell a story, and every second you stand somewhere should tell a story. This is all about movements in every sense of that word. It doesn't matter where you are in a game, and also doesn't matter if it's a very passive space, which is a big problem with ambient sound design. Texas Chainsaw, for example, a lot of times the ambient sounds were just like old buildings with literally nothing moving around in them or anything, just dead wood, silent rooms. But that's no excuse for like nothing going on. So you need to be a little creative and just work hard to try to get a little bit of movement in a space. It's a difficult balance, because if you try and infuse a space with too much like active movement and try and put some details in there that are very sort of kinetic and stuff, if there's no visual representation of that, it feels very, very disconnected. So you need to do a little bit of lateral thinking, like, is there any chance some wind could be moving through this space? Is there any chance that there's some like pressure on the walls that could cause some like creaking and donk, 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 like moaning of wood or whatever, a metal space? If it's a spaceship, like could there be some kind of like speakers in the walls that are getting like a little bit of a crunchy, hissy, modulated sound coming from them? So you want to find ways of infusing it with movement, modulation, dynamics, and stuff like that, without it feeling phony or distracting. Because if you like, let's say I had a big howling wind passing through a house in Texas Chainsaw, but there's no visual representation of that wind. In some of the spaces, it would have felt really distracting and off-putting, because you're like, this, I can see that there's no wind passing through the space, but I can hear it. So you need to avoid that. So it's a fine line. I sometimes with ambient spaces, I'll start off with way too much like kinetic energy in the space, and over time I go back and like wandering around it in game and stuff. I think no, this sounds shit. There's too much movement going on here. I've got to like thin it down. So basically, you want to get as much kinetic movement and dynamism and difference over time and stuff like that you can get away with without it feeling artificial, which is the important part. And it's a case of no matter where you stand in a level, you like if you're making games with ambient sound in, you really need to try and play them as much as possible and live in those spaces. Stand in every single spot and listen. What can you hear from that point? Is it fun? Is it boring? Like, can you put in some more creaks in that little spot that you're in? Can you put in some more wind, some more insects, some more distant like thumps and things? That's another thing to think about. Like, it doesn't always have to be about what it is you can see around you. Think about what could be happening 3 rooms away, and the beauty of that is that you have a bit of creative freedom because you're not in that room. You can't see what's going on in that room. So if you're in like an abandoned spaceship, you could have like the distant sound of like sparking electrics or something like that happening 3 rooms away, or just things falling over, or if it's an old building, you could just have just sort of like creaking metal from above. Like, who knows what's going on up there? If they're not up there, then they can't refute what it is that you're doing your sound design for. So it's all about, in terms of time and space, keeping everything moving, keep it authentic, but infuse as much kinetic movement and narrative storytelling as you can within a space. So let's dig in one level deeper. So let's talk about the narrative of the spaces that you're designing sounds for. Something that you can do, which is always a really good idea, is talk to the level designers in terms of the actual designers and the artists working on the levels. Get people to walk you through the spaces they're designing, because they're just as passionate about what they do as you are, and they'll be delighted to show you what it is they've been doing. And it's the best possible way to understand the nuances of all the spaces that you're going to be working in. There's no better way, honestly. Once you know everything there is to know about the levels from the people that are creating the spaces, then you always have the opportunity to ask them questions like, hey, is that a load bearing wall, do you reckon? What would be happening on the other side of this wall? Things like that. Make sure you ask questions. I mean, they can be leading questions because you have like cool sound design ideas that you want to do, and sometimes there's nothing on the other side of that wall. No one's thought about it in particular, and it could be that your concepts as a sound designer are fueling interesting new creative ideas for the other disciplines. So it's all good. It's good stuff. So learn the narrative spaces that you're designing the sounds for, and then also see if you can infuse it with your own ideas and contribute to it, and it's as like a collaborative thing. And once you know the spaces you're working in, that gives you a huge amount of opportunities to add details, like is there rats in the floor above? Then you can have scurrying rats, stuff like that. It's your opportunity to give yourself the best chance to make it detailed and interesting. What else are we saying? So contrast, yes, contrast is absolutely key. In bigger levels, like if you're designing like big world spaces and stuff, this isn't quite so still relevant because you're moving one room to another. But I'm thinking that when I worked on like multiplayer levels for like Crisis 2 and Crisis 3, they're fairly contained maps that I was working in, and there would just be like some buildings, a bit of outside, maybe a rooftop, something like that. But what I would do for anything like that is immediately try and figure out what the key elements of contrast are. It's like, is it windy and exposed up there and safe and non-windy in here? Is it hot and flamey and fiery over there and cool and all right over there? If you can establish a sense of contrast, then that gives you a huge amount of detail that you can add to the sound design, and also means you can help the player out by signaling to them, like, over here, that bit that you were just in, that's the scary flamey bit. Over here it's the icy bit. Like, you're doing a lot of heavy lifting for signposting what part of an area that the players are in, and it can be done with, so you got heat, you've got noise, like maybe there's howling wind up here, quiet up there, and then the spatial stuff, there's like a reverb and things like that. So maybe you've got like a outdoor area that's super flat. Texas Chainsaw, for example, in the family house, like the key map, that's the signature one from the films and everything. Outside it's completely flat for reverb. It's just you come outside, it's like dead, and you feel that Texan heat and stuff like that immediately. Inside in the caves and the tunnels, huge, like really sort of OTT exaggerated reverb, like running through those tunnels, and there's a sense of difference as you move out of that sort of really echoey, reverberant space, and you come out and you burst out into the outside. It's flat suddenly. So key contrasts is what I'm saying. Just do what you can with establishing those and capitalizing on them. Okay, so hero sounds and carpet bombing. I know those are fairly silly terms, but they'll work for us. So this isn't like a very super defined, this isn't the only way you can do things, but these are just two key types of sound that I use a lot. Specifically on Texas Chainsaw, I use these two concepts a lot. Hero sounds, carpet bombing sounds. So I really wish you would stop looking at my... Oh, look how beautiful my Eurorack is, though. Okay, I mean, it's much nicer looking than my face, so it's fine. Oh no, we're back on me anyway, so it's cool. Hero sounds, carpet bombing sounds. So by hero sounds, I mean when you're going through like a new space that you're designing sounds for, there'll be a few points where you've got an opportunity to design something just really huge and dramatic and really fun. Like, it's always an absolute pleasure to do the actual sound design for them. For Texas Chainsaw, it would be things like sort of industrial looking machines that were in the level. I would take any opportunity for one of those to design a bespoke like sound for it that only appears in that one location. You can reuse them, but honestly, I would say if you have the opportunity to design a sound for one specific location in a game, do it, because it just gives a huge amount of extra value. If you hear that same sound again and again in different levels, it kind of devalues it a little bit. Yeah, hero sounds. Also, when you make those hero sounds, make sure you set them up well and they're not being like obstructed and occluded and low pass filtered by other stuff. Make sure they've got their space, and that when you come close to them, they're really getting all the value out of them that they can. Like, it can be tempting to just make a sound, plop it in the game, and it's like, it's not quite getting all the value out of it that you wanted, but it's sort of in the mix. You're like, oh, it's fine. No, don't do that. Just give it some time, make sure that sound for the user, because this is all about the end user experience. This is all about the players. Make sure that when they go into that space, they're like, holy shit, fuck is that? It sounds terrifying or amazing or beautiful or funny or whatever the context is. But just make sure their experience is maximized and it's like at its potential. So that's hero sounds, bespoke, one instance, like special little sounds. On the other end of the scale, you got carpet bombing of sounds. So again, sorry to always reference Texas Chainsaw, but it's most fresh in my mind. For that, carpet bombing sounds would be like crickets and cicadas and creepy crawlies and stuff like that. These, you need to make sure you got loads and loads of random variations so that they're not annoying, like birds, like, classic video game stuff. And I'm a huge fan of hand spotting these in if the game that you're working on is fairly bespoke. Let's do a very, very quick detour to talk about systemic sound versus bespoke sound. Sound designers love building systems, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But make sure if you're building complicated systems for like systemic procedural sound and stuff like that, that there's a good reason for it. Like, it can be quite tempting to build an overcomplicated system when actually just boop, boop, boop hand placing sounds would do almost a better job. So be honest with yourself. Is it right for the game you're working on? If you're making huge procedural maps, hundreds and hundreds of miles of stuff, obviously build procedural systemic placement for spot sounds and stuff. If it's like boutique and you have the opportunity to hand place it, it's just better, honestly. Just take some time, go through and put all your little sounds in cool places where they would be in the world. It's got a huge amount of value. So there you go. That's hero sounds, carpet bombing sounds. So yeah, just those kind of sounds, put them everywhere. Spend loads of time, plop them everywhere you can imagine they'd be useful. It adds so much detail to the game. Just keep the ranges small, and yeah, it's worth doing. So supporting art and design. This is I mean, as a games developer, if you're a good games developer, you should be talking to all the other disciplines: art, design, animation, code, everyone on a daily basis. They should be very aware of what it is you're doing, very aware of your intentions as a sound team, and your creative direction and stuff. Talk to them, always talk to them. Like, make sure they're aware of you. Like, audio teams have got bigger over the last 10 years, but they're still pretty small compared to like the art teams, the code teams and stuff. So make yourself known, chat to them, share ideas, do little videos showing all the cool things that you're working on. Stuff like that has a huge amount of value. So make sure you do that. There'll be elements of things that the art team do, and probably more so the design team, where they'll have like interactive things in the game or like features they need feedback for. So make sure you support them, but also make sure you're never doing anything to the detriment of the overall audio of the game. And that doesn't have to be a fight. Sometimes, like a designer might be like, okay, we want a siren going off all the way through the level when this door is open, and that would sound like absolute shit because sirens are sirens. But that doesn't mean what they're asking for is wrong. It just means that it's your job to figure out a compromise that gets everything that's needed for the situation. You need to support them and make sure that the game feedback is represented and that it's clear to the player, but also don't compromise and let the overall canvas of the ambient sound suddenly turn to shit because you got some big old siren wailing through a whole level or something like that. So then there'll be plenty of times when you'll find yourself in a difficult situation of having to find a balance and get everything you need to support the design and art teams, but also not let the overall canvas of the audio sound shit. So just find balance there and a little bit diplomacy. Just work with design, but make them understand that you can't compromise the quality of the audio just to give some feedback. There's always a good solution in there somewhere. Every game that I've worked on, we've had to figure this out, and may take some time, may take some iteration. You may have to put some sounds in that are heavy-handed at first, but you'll get there. So just work with them and figure out what it is that everyone needs to meet in the middle and make it sound good for everyone. Okay, this one's a nice one, I think. So I wanted to call it creating memories and triggering memories. I think it's a really important part of being a sound designer, and a really nice, interesting part of being a sound designer. So I think one of the most incredible skills you have when approaching ambient sound design is your memories and your experiences, and what that can mean in terms of what you create for a game. So let's say, for example, let's say you've got a shoreline, a beach, like a rocky beach. Hopefully you have some interesting memories of being in that sort of space. And that's what you can bring to the table. And you can bring evocative memories of your own, or even, you can try and induce evocative memories in other people from their own experiences. But I think that's something quite precious that you can infuse into a game that has a lot of meaning. So if you've got a windy field or scary tunnel, just think back about your life and think about times that you've been in similar spaces, and listen to your memory of what you can hear, and try and infuse the game with some of that. Honestly, it's something I feel very passionately about, and I think it's really cool. You can end up giving a little piece of yourself to this game and to the experience that the players have. So how cool is that? Okay, taking it one level deeper now, we're going to talk about transparency, asymmetry, and texture. So we're getting down to a bit more of a sound design level now. Obviously, most of this has been more sort of a high level conceptual stuff, but this is some practical stuff that I think has value, that doesn't dig in too deep to the point that it's alienating if you're not a sound designer in particular. Maybe you're just like a games developer or just generally interested in this stuff. Transparency. Sound design for ambient sounds just really doesn't work if you're squashing it. It sounds like shit. Just make sure that your source material is very transparent, very dynamic. So, if you're looking at actual waveforms, if you're looking at a block of sound and that's one of the elements that you're using, then no, that's no good. Nature isn't limited. Its nature is nice and transparent and dynamic, and there's huge ranges of sound, and it's clean and fresh sounding. So make sure that's what you're doing. Just don't be tempted to like squash it a bit just to get some extra juice out of it. It'll sound so shit in the game. Just keep everything, like if you're layering stuff up, yeah, that source material has to be lovely clean and fresh, and if you can use your own stuff, oh my god, that's so much better. But obviously we're now in a time where there's a world filled with amazing sound designers who are like recording content and providing it. I mean, do make sure to support sort of independent sound designers creating libraries. There's some amazing people out there doing really good work. But yeah, mix that with your own content and then you're up to winner. But yeah, don't be tempted to chuck on a load of stupid compression and limiting stuff like that. Like if you're looking at your like your ambient beds, then you want to be seeing occasional little flutters of peaks and then troughs down, so maybe almost near silence, like and then up again, just dynamism, just fresh, interesting expression and sort of transient detail and stuff. Asymmetry. So asymmetry works really well for ambient sound design. That can be all kinds of asymmetry. That could be a case of tuck, 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 little transients in the middle of like I said, like a very, very low level bed. Let's say you got some like wind through dry grass, and it's just like a fluttery, occasional little transients along the waveform there. Every now and then there'll be like a little creak of a tree or something, just a little spike, like a not compressed but just a delicate spike. Like if you're looking at your waveform of ambient sound, it should be interesting. If you're looking at like a dull fucking stupid waveform, then just go back in and do something more interesting, because that's not going to be fun for anyone. Just make sure there's points of interest and dynamism and range. It could also be a case that you've got like a quiet section interspersed with crazy bits that are just fucking big and loud and chunky. Like if I do like industrial spaces, I'll quite often just do quiet, boom, boom, and like it's just these little hits, and maybe just like a huge vibrant metal bit, and then back to the quiet again. Difference and change over time is always a good thing. It's just it just works. It's really nice. And then texture. I mean, heavy-handed metaphor, but it's just like paint on a canvas. You want texture, you want visceral detail, differences. So in terms of ambient spaces, you want abrasive sounds, you want sounds rubbing on each other, tactile, visceral sounds. You want like steam, like dirt, debris, stuff like. I like debris is fucking brilliant. I love debris in ambient sound design. I use it all the time. Like just falling dirt. You don't need to see it. Like you wouldn't see it most of the time. It's just so fine and stuff. But just layering this sort of visceral, evocative stuff. That real sort of the stuff that like touches your senses. That you feel like it feels dirty or it feels cold. Things like that. It's primal sort of elemental stuff, just works brilliantly. So just try and incorporate that as much as possible. Okay, and one last thing. Audio is not a support department. Audio is key to a game. And it's your job to make sure you're there from day one. You may get a lot of people at the beginning of a project saying, audio is half the experience, or audio is going to be so crucial to this game. But if you don't keep your voice being heard throughout production of a game, then your voice will get lost and forgotten about. That's your responsibility. So make sure you're there from day one. From the second the concept artists are starting to think about what the level's going to look like, you need to be talking to them. You need to be talking to the level designers, the artists, the production team, everyone. Like audio always needs to be there from day one. So make sure you are, and make sure your voice is heard. Be positive, be creative, be collaborative. Just get in there and be involved in the mix from the first second. There's so many cool things you can do if you get in there from the first second, because you could throw in ideas like let's if they're making like a farm space that's got a river running through it, you could say like, hey, maybe we could have a water wheel there, because that would sound quite cool and have a summery feel to it, which is great for our game. Or maybe this lift door over here in this abandoned spaceship is slamming shut and it sounds really scary. You can get in there, like you can suggest things that will make it more awesome for the sound design once you actually get into doing all the ambient sound design. So yes, get in there day one, represent, be an awesome audio person. Yeah, that's it, I think. I mean, oh man, I love doing ambient sound design so much. It's one of my favorite areas of my job. Yeah, I just hope this has been useful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment, and please do take the time to like and subscribe, just because I'm sorry about how I've got a blurry face, but I promise I'll learn to be better at the video side of things and get a less blurry face in future. If you guys like and subscribe, I'll be just so crisp. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this. Bye.